It wasn't always pretty, but your St. Louis Blues have begun the year 2-1-0. Welcome in to another edition of Blues Breakdown Podcast, episode 2 now. And what a week it was. The Blues start the week with the come from behind win over the Kraken. When you just think the comebacks can't get even crazier already, they come back from a 3-goal deficit in the third period to down the Sharks. And then Friday night, it looked like maybe another comeback was in the cards. A late goal there from Shea Theodore got deflected in front. Ended up being the difference as the Blues fell 4-3. But what a week and what a show of resiliency we saw from this team. Obviously, we're going to dive into each matchup and kind of break it down. But just to start, I know you're never wanting to kind of be in a spot where you have to come back from 2 and 3 goal deficits, but last year, this team wasn't doing that. They weren't showing the resiliency. They weren't showing the fight to get back into games. And through 3 games, that's something we've seen. And again, you don't want to be in that spot. But I think we start with opening night. The big story was Bolduc actually, like we talked about, he was on the roster. He took pregame warmups, so there was a sign there was some sort of injury going on. Turns out it looked like it was Alexander Texier who's battling an upper body injury. But Bolduc doesn't draw in for game 1. They go to Kapanen there on that third line wing. And really early on in that Seattle game, for the first 25, 30 minutes of the contest, the ice was tilted heavily in Seattle's favor. And it was like if you were just watching the game, you were probably just seeing that it felt like the rink was just completely tilted. The Blues were being dominated. That's the best way to put it. They go down 2-0, a goal from Vince Dunn, a goal from Eeli Tolvanen, puts Seattle ahead 2-0. And really the game flipped with Nathan Walker. Got in a scrap with former Blue Vince Dunn, and it felt like from there the momentum turned. Radek Faksa drew a minor on Adam Larson. Larson got the extra 2 there after both of them got roughing, but it sent the Blues to the power play, and you saw the play there where Falk coming up the ice, drops it back for Thomas, and I saw a good breakdown on TikTok, a guy that kind of breaks down different power plays, and it's a play the Blues have kind of stolen from Dallas in the playoffs. Once that puck gets dropped back to Thomas, you could just see the Seattle 4 just all kind of instantly look at Robert Thomas. And in the meantime, Jordan Kyrou's flying up the right wall, and Thomas hits him in stride, and Kyrou gets in behind Alexiak and makes it 2-1. And from there, again, like last year, I don't think the Blues are building on that momentum. Maybe they get that goal, and then you sit there watching it, and you're like, oh, we're close. But no, a minute and 36 seconds later, the new guy, Philip Broberg, finds an opening there, beats Grubauer, ties the game at 2, and just 22 seconds later, Alexander Texier, an incredible saucer pass to Kyrou on a breakaway. Blues lead 3-2, and they go the final 11:50 of that third period. The St. Louis Blues do not allow a shot on goal. So, you're seeing some improvements in terms of goal suppression. Incredible pass from Texier that fed Kyrou on that breakaway. Going back to that Broberg goal, though, I love that Dylan Holloway gets the second assist on that, and he was like one of the first guys over there jumping into Broberg's arms. So a cool moment for those two guys. Being the 2 new guys from Edmonton, coming over together, taking the chance, signing those offer sheets, and for Holloway to get an assist on Broberg's first with the Blues is pretty awesome. And you could see the excitement from those two. And it was a big goal in the game. It tied the game at 2. And 20 seconds later, Texier, like I said, I can't say it enough. That is an incredible pass that he made. On my notes that I have written down here, I bold, italicized it, underlined it. It was that good of a pass from Texier to fit that in space and put it right on Kyrou's tape to give the Blues the lead and eventually the win. But you can't say enough about Jordan Binnington in that game. He gave up those 2 goals, and I think it was like a minute 56 or something that Seattle scored their goals in, or a minute 52, whatever. It wasn't necessarily anything, he made that initial save on Dunn, and Dunn did a good job of following that play up and putting it home. But, he kept them in that game. And that's going to have to, I think, be the theme of the year. You saw it, Friday night in Vegas once again. Binnington kept them in that game. They lost. Yes, he gave up 4 goals, but I don't know how many of those are quote-unquote soft goals or goals that he would want back. A couple deflections. The third goal that Theodore scored was just kind of Parayko blocking that shot and being down. But Binnington, his first 2 games have been lights out. And that Seattle game, he deserves a ton of credit. And you kind of heard it in the post game on 101. Dylan Holloway talked about, Benner's just locked down is what he said. And that's a huge win for the Blues. You start the season 1-0, and it kind of gives you some good mojo to start that year 1-0. And it probably, maybe, I don't know if I want to say it kind of maybe reframes mindset, just because I don't think last year that team would even show that sort of fight, that sort of resiliency to get back into games. I think the Blues last year, they laid down a lot. And yes, they showed fight at the end of the season. They only missed the playoffs by 6 points. But, there was just games last year where it felt like if they gave up 2 goals, it was over. Like, it just was like they were just kind of imploding on themselves. But not this year. Back-to-back games, back-to-back comebacks, and nearly a third straight over the Vegas Golden Knights. But yeah, the Blues start. Big win over Seattle. Overall, I liked what I saw in that game. I maybe not the first 25, 30 minutes, but look, you get a win. You saw some good things. It was pretty quickly. I think it was after the San Jose game. They were dubbed the WTF line, the Walker, Toropchenko, and Foxa line. So that's kind of sticky, and they've been great through the first 3 games. They have been absolutely fantastic. It feels like every time they're on the ice, they're hard on pucks, and then at the same time, when they're hard on pucks, they're just hemming in the other team's whatever line's out there. They're cycling the puck around. They're going D to D. They're getting pucks on net, and it's just setting up, a lot of times the Thomas line to jump right back on the ice and continue that pressure. And you can't say enough about how good that Walker, Foxa, and Toropchenko line has been. And I know things are going to be juggled here as we head into the home opener Tuesday. If you're Drew Bannister, I think you try to keep that line together if you can, because they've been nothing short of amazing. For the St. Louis Blues to start this year. Looking now, let's jump to the San Jose game really quick. It felt like, and I'm sure everybody that was watching that game that stayed up for that 9:30 puck drop was thinking, all right, here we go again. Celebrini gets his first, in quotes, I guess. I mean, he spun the puck on net, went off Matt Kessel's skate. You can't fault anybody there. I don't fault Kessel for that play. He's got Eklund going to the front of the net that he's got to contend with. So nothing you can do there. Celebrini gets his first, and it just kind of, you could feel the energy in that building, and we talked about it on last week's episode. Like, that was going to be a weird game because, A, you didn't beat the Sharks last year. You should beat the Sharks. But it's the debut of Macklin Celebrini and the debut of Will Smith. So there was energy in that building. Celebrini gets the first goal of the game, makes it 1-0. But again, maybe if the Blues are thinking anything about last year, and, hey, we haven't beat this team, it was erased pretty quickly. Pavel Buchnevich comes back, I think, a minute and something later. He gets a goal off a defenseman, ties the game at 1. And then late in the period, incredible pass from Celebrini. You have to give him his props. Incredible pass from behind the net to find Toffoli on the backside, and it was just kind of one of those plays where it caught the Blues, it caught Nick Leddy sleeping, and we'll get into the play of Nick Leddy. But an incredible pass from Celebrini makes it 2-1 there after 1, and going into the second, San Jose gets a power play, and I was sitting there watching the game with my fiance, and like on that power play, you could just see the way they were snapping the puck around. The Blues had no chance to set up their penalty kill. It was just constant puck movement from San Jose, and I was like, they're going to score. And then Granlund throws a tremendous pass in front to Zetterlund, and Zetterlund deflects it home. 3-1 San Jose, and then maybe what felt like the dagger at the time was Barclay Goodrow getting the shorty, and again, nothing you can do, no fault to Joe Hofer there. That was just a fluky goal, but it felt like if you're looking at that from the Blues' perspective, like, okay, Celebrini gets the first, fluky goal. You look at the second goal, Leddy doesn't pick up his man, Toffoli scores, it's 2-1. The Goodrow goal, I mean, that's a third. The only goal that I think you look at and you go, okay, they beat us, was the Zetterlund goal. But the other 3, like, that was your own doing. And yes, Toffoli beat you, but it's a product of Nick Leddy not picking up Toffoli there in front with Celebrini making that pass. But the Blues didn't lay down. They come out in the third period, just almost nearly 3 minutes in. Radek Foxa just goes right to the net, wraps around, puts it home. It's 4-2. And then I think 3 minutes later, Ryan Suter comes right down the middle. A good pass from Toropchenko. He rips it home 4-3. And then 47 seconds to go, a drop pass from Thomas to Falk. Falk is just throwing the puck on net with neighbors in front. And this game is tied. And it just like, at that point, it was like, this team's different. This team is electric. This team's gritty. They don't quit. And at that point, you're looking at it like, just don't give up a goal. Just get your point. And San Jose did have a couple rushes there, and I'm sitting there going, oh no. But they didn't. They got it to overtime, and I'm just happy. They got their point. Great stuff. Like, if you can get the extra point with the overtime winner, great. But you were down 4-1 in the third, and you earned a point. 45 seconds into overtime, Braden Chin goes bar down. The Blues win, and it was, just kind of exercising any demons from last year, it felt like. And that, to me, is a huge mental win for this team. And at that time, too, it's like you go into that game against San Jose, just get a win. Secure the winning road trip, and for, no pun intended, you're playing with house money going into Friday night, the second night of a back-to-back. Obviously didn't work out, but, that win against San Jose, I think, exercises some demons for this team from last year, and also shows they're for real. they made the comment about that they knew that they had to beat teams like this. It was a concerted effort to win games over like against teams like San Jose, and it didn't look pretty. They were down 4-1. I thought they were the better team for all 60 minutes. Maybe a little bit in that second period they got outplayed. They got outshot, I think, like 14-7 or something like that. So you could make the argument that they weren't the better team, but they were so dominant in that first and third period that I thought they deserved to win that game, and they got what they deserved. They got the win. Incredible effort from them to come from behind and pick up a win. And then going into Friday against Vegas, they finally score first. Booch has been red hot. He had 2 goals in the loss. But I just look at that effort, from Friday night. And again, like, it's a second night of a back-to-back. It's hard to fault those guys. Like, they're always in games, it feels like, even when they're down 2 or 3 goals. Like, I feel like there's this kind of level of confidence, at least for me, watching these games, and I feel decent about their chance. And that's why that game against San Jose, just kind of going through Twitter, you could see people like, all right, I'm going to bed. And I don't blame them. It was like 11:30 going into the third period. But I was just like, I'm going to stick it out. I think that this is not a 4-1 game. It didn't feel like it. And you could just kind of see they just kept coming. They kept coming. They kept coming. And same thing Friday against Vegas. They go down 2-1 after one. They end up going down 3-1. But they just keep coming. Like, they just don't quit. And I just absolutely love what I've seen. It is going to be such a fun year with this Blues team. Like I said, Booch gets the first goal. Eichel gets the game-tying goal just a minute and a half later. Beautiful pass from Barbashev. Great move from Eichel to beat Binnington. Barbashev, he gets one, gives the Knights a 2-1 lead going into the second. And we mentioned briefly a bit ago the Shea Theodore goal. Parayko blocks the initial shot. I think it was from Cole Schwent. That kind of just, the puck was floating around the zone. Schwent just, ripped it on goal with slap shot. Parayko caught it off the ankle. He's down. And then it just kind of leaves Leddy out on an island with Shea Theodore bearing down, and he just rips it. Slap shot by Binnington. I think he was screened a bit too by Walker going down to block that shot. But you're down 3-1. But just 4.5 minutes later on the power play, Pavel Buchnevich makes it 3-2. His second of the game, his third of the year. He's been outstanding for the Blues. So is Jordan Kyrou. He's having a great year. Nick Waugh gets one about halfway through the third, 4-2, and you're kind of looking at it and you're like, all right, it's maybe over, but it's not. Just 2.5 minutes later, Robert Thomas gets a great pass from Booch, who blew a tire at one point. He gets a great pass. He goes right down Broadway, makes it 4-3, and again, I've said it, I think, probably 300 times on this podcast, and you guys were probably like, shut up, but like, that doesn't happen last year. I think last year, when Nick Waugh would score that goal to go up 4-2, it's just, the Blues are like, we're done. Dump and chase, get in, get out. And it's just one and done after the dump. And it's like, not this year. This team doesn't have any quit in them. It's going to be incredibly fun to watch, in my opinion. We talked about the WTF line. I love that line. It's hard, I think, to break it up. Another guy that has been outstanding, and I think the expectations for this guy were there, but you had to realize he has, had like 100 games in the NHL. Philip Broberg has been unreal. He has been so good. Him and Falk look like just like they have great chemistry already. Broberg skates so smooth. Falk's been outstanding on both ends. And Broberg, what I like about his game, he's not afraid to shoot the puck. When it goes D to D from Falk over to him, he's throwing pucks towards the net. That's when good things happen. I mean, you have to throw pucks on net. You saw that goal scored by Nick Waugh. That was a product of Shea Theodore throwing the puck on net, and he got the deflection. If Broberg continues to do that, he is going to get those assists. He's going to pick up, goals that way. And speaking of Broberg picking up assists, I think he's got 2 assists already this year and a goal. So he's got 3 points in 3 games. He's a point-per-game player right now. Granted, it's a small sample size, but he's been outstanding. He has been really, really good. That's another guy that's been outstanding, and you expected is Robert Thomas. He has been unbelievable for the Blues this year so far. There's an account on Twitter, I'll get the name really quick here, Hockey Stat Cards. I mean, Robert Thomas is always at the top for the Blues in these first 3 games, is just kind of being the best player in terms of impact on the ice. He's been great. Kyrou's been great. Holloway's been good, I think, and he got a look at center late in that game against San Jose, and then Bannister rolled with it against Vegas. He played all right. He's good on the forecheck. He's not afraid to throw the body around, and so I've liked what I've seen from Holloway. One of my big questions, and it's not just me that has this question. It's a constant dialogue from St. Louis media to fans on Twitter. What's the plan with Booch at center? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand exactly what the thought process is, and my reasoning for that is you'll see Bannister go back to Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kyrou at times when he feels like the offense isn't going, which to me is like, okay, you understand that that's your best line, and I don't think that there was ever a doubt of that, but like if you're doing it already in the first period and you're comfortable with Holloway playing third line center, just bump Shen to second center and go Booch, Thomas, Neighbors, and then you could go. I guess it would be Shen, Kyrou, and Bolduc, who's in right now. When Texier comes back or Sod or whoever, if you want to run Holloway at third line center, like that's fine. But I feel like they're just making it more complicated than it needs to be at times because it makes it clear he realizes that Booch on the wing with Thomas is their best opportunity for offense. And it's something you could do from the opening puck drop, especially if you're letting Holloway play third line center. I think Shen's a better second line center than Booch is, and you need Booch on that first line wing because him, Thomas, and Neighbors is, that's an ideal line. It kind of gives you a little bit of everything. So I'd be interested to see if something switches when Saad comes back Tuesday. Maybe Sundqvist comes back Tuesday. I don't know. I would like to think it would, but I don't know what they're thinking. They seem pretty committed to this Pavel Buchnevich at center, and they said on the broadcast last night, John Kelly and Jamie Rivers said, Booch kind of said, like, I'll play center, but I don't want to be moved around, game in and game out, which I get. If he wants to get the reps at the center spot, he wants to get better at it, and he's been good in the dot. That's not really been the issue. It just feels like you're underutilizing him maybe a little bit. So that would be my thing. Like, just move him back to the wing, get the most out of Booch while he's in his prime. And yeah, I think you go from there because that would give you your best chance to win night in and night out. And like I said, things might change as we head into next week as we get this 4-game homestand kicked off, which we'll get into here in a second. But even if it doesn't, Booch hasn't been bad. I just think him on the wing would give you your best chance to win. But I can't say enough about how much I loved what I saw on this road trip. It wasn't always pretty, like I said in the open, and it's not going to be pretty over an 82-game season. But to pick up 2 wins the ugly way at times is big because, I think you have to get to your game. You have to avoid those lulls that we've seen in the first 3 games. They happened in the second period San Jose, the first period and part of the second period in Seattle, and then it happened, in the second period in Vegas, and you have to kind of find ways to cut those out and play a full 60, but they're not doing it right now, but they've won 2 games. That's the bottom line. You look at it, they're 2-1. Now, how does that play out over 15, 20, 40, 50, 82 games? I don't know. Maybe not well, but if they can correct and play a full 60, this team is going to be, I think, a lot better than people are giving them credit for. I think if you're a Blues fan, it's a lot to be excited about, and you got guys coming back. Brenden Saad's coming back Tuesday. Sundqvist is going to be coming back soon. So I've been kind of sitting and looking at like these lines, like how's this going to work? What's it going to look like? I'm having trouble. I don't envy Drew Bannister, and maybe I'm just making it more difficult than it needs to be, but he'll have some decisions to make with some guys, and it's going to be exciting that you have this problem. You have guys that you're like, oh man, I want them in the lineup, but this guy's coming back. So they have depth this year. The defense has been a lot better. Nick Leddy hasn't been great. And that's probably putting it nicely. He just looks lost out there at times. He just turns the puck over a lot in his own zone. A couple times where he wasn't marking his guy that leads to a goal. So you need Leddy to be better. Him and Parayko's been great, but you need just Leddy to be better to get, especially on the top pair. I would love to see Broberg get a chance at Parayko, but if you don't want to break up Broberg and Falk, who have been so good, just make them the top pair. And it kind of would be unfair to Parayko because he's getting dropped down to that second pair with Leddy, but Broberg and Falk have been unbelievable, and I think in the long term, Broberg-Parayko is probably what you're going to see in terms of, the top pair. So I would love to see Broberg get a crack at it. I think he's been really good. I think Falk's been really good, though, so I can see why you wouldn't want to break him up. But Nick Leddy, his play in his own zone has to improve greatly here as we head into this 4-game homestand because he hasn't been very good. But the good news is the Blues are 2-1, and they're heading home for their first Central Division matchup against the Minnesota Wild. This 4-game homestand, like I mentioned, starting with the Wild, it's an interesting one. You get your first Central Division matchup with Minnesota on Tuesday, and then Thursday you get the New York Islanders, Saturday you get the Carolina Hurricanes, and then Sunday, Monday off, and then the next Tuesday you get the Winnipeg Jets. So 2 Central Division opponents here in these first 4 games at home, and I think for the Blues, they're just excited, I think, to be back home. They're going to be playing in front of their fans after playing on the road for the first three. You have to get your own home opener on Tuesday, and a lot of times, what I expect to see Tuesday is a great push in the first 10 minutes. I don't think you're going to see the Blues get dominated to start that game Tuesday. I could be way off base, but you heard Brenden Shen talking about it. I can't remember if it was on ESPN after the game or if it was on 101 with Kerber. I can't remember exactly which one it was. But Shen was talking about, you come in and you play in a home opener, like you expect those games to be difficult because those guys are fired up to play in front of their own fans. Everybody has hope. We talked about it last week. The Blues have to do that now to the Wild on Tuesday. You have to come out with a push to begin the game. You have to be fired up. You're back in front of your home fans. It's a new-look team, and I expect the Blues to push hard in the first 10, 15 minutes of that first period, and probably even all of the first period. I think it takes Minnesota the first 20 to settle into that game. It comes up to the Blues now if they're going to get a goal or two, if they're going to, make Minnesota pay for maybe not being completely settled into the game. On Tuesday night, I think you have to. You think you have to pick up a goal or two. I think they're going to be buzzing. They've played pretty good. So that's what I look for. I think you're going to go back to Jordan Binnington on Tuesday. I'm just looking at the schedule, and, you have a day off in between games. I don't know when you try to work Hofer in for another game. I feel like at some point on this homestand he'll play, but you could run Binnington out. It's still early in the year. You don't have any back-to-backs for the rest of the month, so this could be the Jordan Binnington show here for the next 8 games. I imagine Hofer gets 1 to 2 of those. If I had to bet, but Minnesota, tough game. That's a team that's kind of similar to where you're at in terms of aspirations and goals for this year. I think the Blues and Wild line up very, very similarly. They obviously have a terrific player in Herrell Kaprizov, great on the back end with Brock Faber. So is it Philip Gustafson in net for the Wild? I think that's the case with Fleury as the backup, but the Kaprizov, it feels like he always burns the Blues. I don't know if that's the case, but just when you watch Kaprizov, he's so dynamic, so good, in the slot. So they're going to have to check him. Kaprizov against the Blues in 17 games, 6 goals, 7 assists, and he's a +2. So that's a guy that is consistently beating you. And you have to find a way to shut him down. He's a very, very, very good player, like I said. And then Brock Faber on the back end, a dynamic young player for the Minnesota Wild. So the Blues are going to have their hands full on Tuesday, no doubt about that. But I expect this homestand. I think we said last week, 3-game road trip. You wanted 2 wins. I think you want to shoot for winning a homestand. I think a split here would be most likely. 2 wins, I think, would be ideal. Maybe go 2-1-1. Take what would be 5 of 8 points. That would be, I think, ideal. Get 5 of 8 points on this homestand. And again, you're sitting in good shape as you head out to Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, and then back in the States to Philly. But yeah, I'm just excited for this team to come back home. We'll finally get a chance to see them. I'll be there Tuesday night for the home opener. So if anybody's gonna be there, let's do a Blues breakdown meetup, episode 2, and we're doing meetups already. I'm just kidding, but I'm excited. Let me know if anybody's gonna be there because I think it'll be a fun time. I think it's gonna be a good crowd for a Tuesday night. And then you got your first Saturday home game. Those are always fun with the Carolina Hurricanes, a very, very, very good team in town. So I'm excited about this homestand. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. Hockey's back, and just looking around the league, there's been a ton of good games already. It's been fun to just watch a lot of these games and kind of take notes about what we're going to be seeing, when the Blues come up against some of these teams down the road. So it's been a blast, though. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that's really jumped out at me. Texier was good, in that one game he played. Joseph and Shen, I think that and I know Shen got moved up with Neighbors and Thomas, but Brenden Shen and Matthew Joseph together, is just such a great pair. I think they play so well together, and then you throw out Kapanen or whoever on that line, but they just play similar, but they complement each other. They just look so good together. Joseph has been unbelievable in these first 3 games. I've really enjoyed his game. Brenden Shen looks like he is, not last year was a weird year for Schenner, and I think it had a lot to do with his first year as captain, and maybe he's a little more comfortable now in his second year with the C, but he's looked good in the first 3 games to start the year. But yeah, Matthew Joseph is kind of a guy that he's not going to fill up the stat sheet with goals and assists, but he's going to do the other things. He's going to be hard on pucks. He's going to forecheck. He's going to lay the body. He's going to block shots, and that's a guy that you just need on this team. I'm trying, like, he kind of reminds me a little bit now. I know Barbashev now with Vegas has kind of turned into more of a scorer, but Matthew Joseph reminds me a lot of what Barbashev was with the Blues. He was the guy that he might get you, 10, 15 goals a year, not a ton of points, but he's going to do all the things that maybe some guys, not that they don't want to do, but he takes that load off of some of those guys that, getting in front of the lanes and blocking shots, going to lay the body. So I love what Matthew Joseph has brought to this team. This team just feels better. They're deeper than they were last year. You have a fourth line you can roll out with, Walker, Torpy, and Foxa. So I've been pleasantly surprised with the bottom six. I know in the preseason that they liked Holloway, Foxa, Joseph a lot. Obviously, Holloway kind of been juggled a little bit up there. He's been up with Thomas on the top line. He's played third line center with Matthew Joseph. All of that to say it's going to change Tuesday if I had to bet with Branden Saad coming back into the lineup. But, I mean, I don't think I've been this excited for the Blues season. I mean, every year has excitement, but I think even going into last year and the year before, you're like, okay, like, we don't know what this is going to look like. It just, what this team is going to be. There wasn't a ton to be excited about because at the time last year, you didn't know what Jake Neighbors was. He was starting the year on the fourth line. Your third line was Vrana, Hayes, and Blais. And so you were excited for hockey to start there. Like I said, everybody has hope in game one, but I think with the Blues, that hope was quickly dashed. Not this year. We're through 3 games, and I'm just watching this team, and I'm like, they're faster, they're more physical, and they're just better. They're deeper. Defensively, it hasn't been pretty. I've liked Suter and Kessel. And I don't know what the analytics and the underlying numbers say about them as a pair, but I feel confident when they're on the ice. I feel confident when Broberg and Falk are on the ice. And I do feel confident when Parayko and Leddy are on the ice, but I just wish that maybe Leddy could be a little bit better. And I think he will. Again, it's 3 games into the year. I don't think it's fair to sit here and bash on guys, but part of this is talking about guys when they're not playing well. And I think Nick Leddy can be a good NHL player for the Blues. I just think, him and Parayko had a good year last year. They just need to settle in, and I think Leddy will get better. I'm not going to sit here and rail at Nick Leddy 3 games into the year because I don't think that's fair at all. Because there's a lot to be excited about this team. There's a lot of positives to talk about. Jordan Binnington's been good. Hofer didn't look fantastic against San Jose. He made the saves he had to. Ultimately, he got a win. He won in the game. But that I think goaltending, you're going to be pretty good this year. I think Hofer Binnington is one of the best, or I should say Binnington Hofer. Sorry, I think that's one of the best goalie tandems in the league. Just 2 solid goalies. I think Binnington's the most underrated goalie in the league somehow. I think he should have got Vezina votes last year. I think he will this year. All in all, this team is going to be fun to watch. I still stand by, after the first 3 games and seeing it on the ice in regular season format, still stand by the prediction from last week. Second wildcard team probably get bounced in the first round, which is fine. This team is fun to watch. I think there's a new energy. It's a lot more enjoyable watch than last year. But yeah, the Blues are in good hands. The future is bright. I'm very excited. Once again, you can follow me on Twitter at Clay Herrell. Herrell spelled Herrell. And you can also follow the podcast Twitter at Blues Break Pod. Please, if you want to, if you have any Blues questions, anything, want my opinion on something, message the podcast Twitter, message my Twitter, tweet at me, whatever. Any feedback. I'm always looking for feedback on this show. I'm very grateful to Brenden Schaeffer for allowing me to use his platform to reach some Blues fans. I know he's been looking to get Blues content, but very appreciative of Brenden for letting me use his platform and reaching his audience because he has a great audience. I'm very excited about working with him and his platform, but please, open to any feedback, whatever it is. You're not going to hurt my feelings, so please feel free to reach out. Leave a comment on YouTube. Like I said, reach out on Twitter, comment on YouTube, whatever it is. I would love to hear from people that are listening and kind of what they think of the show. But yeah, the Blues are 2-1-0. We're coming back home and looking to make it a winning homestand as the Blues are set for 4 here at the Enterprise Center. But until next week, let's go Blues.